I live in Australia. I've never left the country before. I'm afraid of heights. I've been in that situation. Not that high because I'd never get up there in the first place. We went through all the flowers, past this really cool house with a garden in front of it. But then as we got further and further around, it became clear that you had to go up. There's no way I'm getting up there. There's the part in the back of my head that goes, wow. Oh, that's really terrifying. I don't want to do that. They wouldn't let you back through. So I had to face it.
Don't you want to know how I survived? Go on, ask me. And I'm going to explain to you how I survived.
There's an elevator. So for people in wheelchairs or with physical disabilities, you can just go up the elevator. So I actually skipped whatever staircase most people went up, but you could only go up like 5 or 6 levels. And then you had to go out on the railing. That was the middle railing, and I was okay on that one. But that was still like, the railing on the right was bigger, so I'd stand on that side. Other times I was like, oh, well, because it's closer to the big tree bit, I can't see as much down, or it wasn't as high as I thought. So I just kept finding manageable ways, but the manageable ways chopped and changed. And then once I got through, there was the option to go up higher, and I went, no. So got out of it and was relieved there was an alternative. Because if I had to be up on that top rung, I would have been like jelly legs holding on to the edge without being able to go near the edge. That's always the hardest one, is like there's a railing, but it's a really low railing and you have to stand right at the edge to hold onto the railing. Otherwise it's just wobble walk with nothing to grab onto. Those are the ones I hate the most. But luckily there was enough manageable and just mental, like, I'm getting better at it. There are places where I'm like, there was no way I would have done that when I was a child, and ironically now that I'm taller, they're fine. And then we got out of the Singapore gardens and went for some lunch, and there was a burger place. So funnily enough, go to Singapore and then go to the most American burger place you can find. And when we walked in there, the first thing I saw on the menu was dog food. And that threw me. I want to say Australia doesn't offer dog food in its restaurants. Not that I've seen. But it turned out that's because the Shake Shack in Singapore caters to dogs. Wait, humans as well, but yeah, they let dogs into the cafes and restaurants. And as someone who really likes dogs, yay. This is the sort of thing where I've come home in Australia and gone, man, why don't we have that? Probably for sanitary reasons, because if a dog is shedding or a dog is barking, yeah, it's gonna ruin some people's experiences. But like with humans, the rule should be as long as you're not being unruly, what's the issue? So I do liken that too. Like, there are gonna be dogs that misbehave, but there are gonna be people that misbehave. Nice, friendly dogs should be allowed in restaurants, because I like dogs. When we came out of the airport, there was a, what's the name of it? Boat Tower Skyscraper. I know it has another name, but that's what I've written down. Boat Tower Skyscraper. Like, I saw it the second I left the airport. I saw it on the tour bus. I saw it on the other tour bus. And then saw it on the night bus. So it was funny that there was a taxi guy who asked us, have you seen the skyscraper? And I was like, yeah, I've seen the skyscraper. I've seen it many, many times. And also the Merlion. That was very cool. And it's also cool that the Merlion, if I remember correctly, is facing the skyscraper. So you get to sort of look at the Merlion, look out to the skyscraper. It's a good view. I see why most of the people I met in Singapore were very big on, you've got to see the skyscraper. It looks really cool. And the thing about the night bus was we went round to different areas, but you had to make sure you got back on the night bus. So there was a cool little park area where people were flying kites, but there was also a moment where we had to get off and eat dinner and did not have time. There was a whole bunch of really small kiosk shops, and so we were rushing around trying to decide what to eat. And I ended up buying a plate of broccoli for 2 Singapore dollars, which, like, the sign said 1 Singapore dollar, and I was like, that's the cheapest meal I've ever had, before realizing, A, well, it is just a plate of broccoli. B, it probably costs less than $1 to make the plate of broccoli, and the guy behind the counter looked really annoyed. Maybe it was because I was fumbling for change in a rush, but basically it was, I'll take a plate of broccoli. You know what it is? It's probably because I just ordered broccoli. Like, now I think about it, like, I find that funny. But they were probably like, is that it? Seriously, just the broccoli? And I'm like, yep, I don't have time for a whole meal of, and like, I didn't have time to try new foods. I was just like, I'll take some broccoli. It's healthy, done, sorted, cheap, easy. And I think they were just like, seriously, I get 2 Singapore dollars out of this? You just want broccoli? Yeah, I found that hilarious. It's like, I came back to my partner and was like, this is my dinner, a plate of broccoli. And it was like 5 minutes to go, eat the broccoli, go, get back on the bus. To the point where it was getting down to the time and I knew my partner was in a queue somewhere and they didn't show up again until the last like 5 to 3 minutes. Like, we were literally like, oh my God, the bus is gonna have left. Yeah, and then it was hard to find back because it turned out we'd walked a lot further down than we thought. Yeah, just crazy rush around night to a plate of broccoli. There were also these Supertrees, which was the entire reason, or at least the initial sales pitch, of why my partner said I should go to Singapore on the way to England. Because my partner had been to Singapore before and was like, you gotta see the Supertrees. And that was so wonderful. They light up, there's a whole show, but also they played a bunch of musical tunes. And again, Hello Dolly, Singing in the Rain. I don't think those were the songs they played, and I can't remember. There'll be a video, but I just remember sitting there and turning to my partner constantly going, that song's from this musical. That song's from this musical. But just the atmosphere with the music, it was such a wonderful experience. Like, you go overseas for the first time, knowing on some level, it's a life-changing event. It's gonna open your eyes. And it's one thing to come back home and be like, I am a different person now. I have different experiences. It's just another to just be able to lie, because I was lying down on a brick floor, just soaking in the experience. And it doesn't necessarily have to be life-changing. It was just spiritually wonderful. And in that moment, you don't need anything else. It's not you're not remotely concerned about what you're doing next. It is just sight and sound and sensory and visceral and life. Last one I didn't recognize. The one before that was Chicago. And then we got back home, to the hotel, I mean. And because it was late at night, we didn't really have much food organized. Like, there wasn't really anywhere to cook in the hotel itself. So we went out to the 7-Eleven we saw across the road. 7-Eleven in Singapore can't really be that different to 7-Eleven in Australia or England. But I found Pokémon Oreos. Pokémon Oreos. I can't tell you just how excited I was when I was like, Pokémon Oreos! It wasn't just like, buy a little packet of the biscuits, like one bar of it. It was the box. You buy a box of Pokémon Oreos. And it says collect all 24, so you're thinking like I don't buy boxes of Pokemon cards, but I see when people do, they tend to be able to collect the whole thing. So I have it in my mind, like, I'm gonna get every Pokemon you could possibly get in those Oreos from those Oreos. There were 2 missing. And I suspect they were the 2 rarest ones. It was Lapras and one other. But for the next 2 days, I ate. So there were 24 bars total. And I think with each bar, there was 3 cookies. I ate half a box the first day and took a photo of every Pokemon I found. And then I ate the rest of the Oreos the next day. Alright, camera is going flat. Time to plug in the thingy. Pokemon Oreos. Number 39 out of 500. Wow. There was a pancake breakfast, which was really cool. But again, I got stomach aches. It's really tough now. Because when I was young, I used to eat McDonald's, KFC, Hungry Jack's all in a row in one sitting. And now I wonder why my stomach is bad. But it does mean I really enjoy hash brown, egg, mushroom breakfasts. I really enjoy pancakes. And my stomach just can't stomach them anymore. I ended up running into a shopping complex and could not for the life of me find the toilets. It was just a maze of shops. But the pancakes were nice. We went to a Buddhist temple, and we went to a really small Buddhist temple, and we were looking at it, and my partner goes, "Oh, I think it's shut." And we went, "Oh, okay, well, yeah, it seemed shut." And then we walked down the road, and there was another Buddhist temple, and my partner was like, "Oh, no, that's the one I meant." And we were sort of like, "Huh, okay." So it was a weird whiplash between, "Oh, I think it's closed. Oh, no, it's open, but I can't be bothered now." But then we went down into, I think, the Chinatown area, and there was a big Buddhist temple, and it was really cool. I'm pretty sure I didn't take any photos while I was in there, but all the statues, I think the history of the place was what really stood out, because they had all these Buddha statues along the walls, all the people praying. Yeah. And also in Chinatown, there was a Tintin store, which I looked up, and it was not from China. Very definitely. Forget where it was from. Belgium. So I'm not sure what that was about. My favorite supermarket, which is a phrase I've never said. There's a place called Don Don Donki. I hope I've pronounced that right. But they had Pokemon noodles, Pokemon nightlights. But I just appreciated it for it has such a fun name. And when I needed lunch, I was able to get some salmon nigiri from there. And so it was a convenience store. It was actually genuinely convenient. And they had a little advertisement out the front saying that they welcome criticism. And the advertisement was fun energy. So our regular supermarkets are just supermarkets. They feel like a corporate chain. This felt like a genuine, characterful store that you just noticed from a distance and genuinely felt like, and I'm not sponsored or anything, but like it felt like it was genuinely there for you. Like it cared about its customers and it cared about a positive experience, and I genuinely felt it every time I walked past it. Like I went in a few times to buy stuff, but even just the first time walking through the shops, I walked in and went, Don Don Donki. And every time I walked past it, I just went, Don Don Donki, hey. It just felt, it gave me a positive feeling every time I looked at it, walked past it, thought about it. Yeah. Whew. And then one of the days, we went to a toboggan park where, so there are different types of toboggans. Like little toboggans you can ride down a very narrow ramp, so it's more like a slide. This was more like a go-kart track with toboggans. And the way they were designed was counterintuitive, but I understand why they've done it. Because with the ones in Melbourne, you pull forward and it goes forward. You pull back and it retracts. It retreats, it stops. So go forward, go, pull back, brake. What they had done, and I understand the design idea, is if you pull forward, it goes. If you pull back, it goes. If you hold it in the center, it brakes. And that is counterintuitive because a lot of people would go, speed, 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 brake, and they'd pull back and keep going. Or they'd be like, speed, speed, slow down a bit, brake. And there were people stuck on the track because they had clearly not pushed forward far enough and accidentally stopped in the middle of the track, which was dangerous. So it was very counterintuitive and maybe not a good idea, but I understand what they've done there so that when people panic and pull back, they don't just brake all of a sudden. You have to make a conscious effort to put it right in the center to brake. So what they've tried to do is prevent impulsive braking. But what they've accidentally done is allow people to accidentally brake without meaning to. So people got stuck on the track, and once or twice myself, I'd pull back and get a bit confused and the thing would stop. But for the most part, yeah, it was a really fun track. It had 4 different ways to go. Like it had a blue track, a red track, a yellow track, and a green track. So you could decide like which track you went on, and we went from smallest to largest, which was a good decision because if you go down the largest one first and then the smallest one next, you're going to be disappointed by the smallest one. Whereas we got used to the toboggans going on the small one and then upgraded each time. The only challenge with it, and I knew this going in, so I was very nervous, you had to go on the, I forget the name constantly, but those chairs that go up the cable cars where you're just sitting on a seat. So I have never been on those in my life. I hate those because it is literally for someone with a fear of heights. You are sitting on the smallest piece of metal while your legs dangle over the edge in the middle of the sky. Like, I don't go on giant swings because they're too high up. To sit on that chair and just go out into the nothingness, where I'm sure you get a good view, but I didn't see it. Because what I did was, I already said to my partner, like, put that a few days late because I'm going to have to build up to that. I do not want to be on those. But I knew I had to do that in order to do the toboggans. And I didn't want my partner nor myself to miss out. So that was one where I knew I was going to have to conquer that. And that was the last thing I wanted to do. What I effectively did was we got there and I was panicking because I thought you had to get on the chair to go up to the top of it to get on the toboggan to ride down the hill. What it actually turned out to be was you get on the toboggan first at the top of the hill, ride down, and then take the chair back. That lifted the anxiety a little bit because I actually got to go, I get to enjoy the toboggan before tackling the hard part. So I went on one of the toboggan rides, got off it, and then went, oh no, here we go. The worst part was, as the chair comes around, what they do is they have you stand on little feet things. You stand on the feet things, and then the chair comes around fast, and it kicks you in your knees. You bend backwards because you have no choice. and then you drop onto the seat, you pull the thing up as it goes. So there's no time to be like, you are safely secure, you'll be fine, no time to prepare, just lining up, stand on the feet thing, boosh. And I, at that point, fell onto the chair, shut my eyes, and said to my partner, tell me when we reach the top. And the first time, I tried very, very hard not to think about where I was, because I was dangling midair in the middle of nowhere. I knew, like, if I panic while in the middle of that, there's no way to get off it, there's nowhere to go. You can't jump off it, you can't escape. Like, I don't bungee jump for that reason. Like, you just, like, I don't skydive. You can't, once you're in the middle of the air, there is nowhere to go, there is no escape. So I shut my eyes, and I waited till I got to the top, and then my partner said, okay, open your eyes. But she told me to open them before we got to the edge. Because the thing was, again, the chair is fast. You have to get off the seat and get out of that area. And I had my eyes shut. So it was like, all right, 3, 2, 1, get off the chair and run. Because if you don't, the chair's going to keep taking you back around. So she was basically like, open your eyes, get ready to jump off. I opened my eyes, saw the nothing floor beneath me, panicked, reshut my eyes and went, not yet. At which point we got to the ramp. She said, open your eyes again. I opened them, and then some guy said, quick, get off. And I went from, oh, I made it, to what? Get off the chair. And I couldn't, because the chair was so fast that it was taking me with it. So I scrambled to get off the chair. The second time round, because I had seen down, it was much harder to pretend that I wasn't in midair. Because the first time I knew physically I was in midair, but my brain hadn't registered what that actually was or looked like, or that it was real. So I could sort of deny it. The second time, and for whatever reason, me and my partner switched seats, like which side we were sitting on, and again, for whatever reason, the seat was going, and like I could hear it creaking, and for whatever reason, my brain went, I know how far down it is. I know how deep the floor is. I know now for a fact how high up I am and how long it actually takes. And the chair sounds and feels like it's about to snap. Like it actually, I was getting genuinely terrified. Like not just from the image of, I know I'm really high up and I'm gonna fall off and die, but actually the thought of, this chair is about to drop. This chair is about to fall off its hinge. How is it actually held on? How is it actually staying up? It's only hanging by a hook. How do they make sure the hook stays on? It's creaking and swinging, so what if it just swings too far and drops? My brain started going to all the places I was trying not to go to. And I freaked out and really had to like start breathing and basically doing meditation in a leg dangling chair. Also, like my bottom was hurting because it was the second time sitting on it. It's not a very comfortable chair. And yeah, I'm just thinking if I move out of, like I was, let me put these down for a second. I was holding onto the bars for dear life. I genuinely felt like if I shifted my bottom at all, I was gonna slip off and just fall off the thing. So I was sitting there going, partner was absolutely supporting me that whole way through, and it just took so much mental energy, like, because there was every chance there I was going to panic and go, I'm not getting back on that, I'm not getting back on that, I'm not getting back on that. But I sat there and I went, and my partner's telling me like, just a bit more to go, you know, there's only this much left, and you know, I can see the top, and she said the same thing. She got up to the height of it and was like, this is too high. So like, in the same vein, like, she was going, yeah, I know, I understand why. Like, I have a fear of heights, but on top of that, it was quite high up at its peak point. But, yeah, the second time got to me the most. Then I got off it and went, okay, now almost like now I know what to do. Like, I got through that. So, even when I panic, I now know I can manage it. Hopefully I can frame myself, and there was only one more to go. It was like, because there's 4 tracks, but you get on with each middle bit. So there were 3 chair rides, and that meant like I could rationalize myself back into, we managed, it was scary, but I coped. There's only one more to go. I don't want to miss the last 2 toboggan rides just because of that. I can do this. And the third time, I got superstitious. Like, me and my partner switched back, so I started in the same seat, or the same side of the seat that I started with the first one, as if my brain was going, the first one was safer than the second one, so I'll just do that again. Like, for no logical reason whatsoever, I was like, I prefer the right side of the seat. And we did that. So, the third time I did the same, I was breathing. There were once or twice that it still got to me, because again, I could picture it now. It was too late because I knew what it looked like, and whatever I was trying to do, my brain kept going to, you know how high up you are, and there is nothing holding you from the drop. This chair is not enough to keep you in, and even then, if I'm strapped in for like a giant swing or whatever, I'm still like, yes, but it's gonna drop. So yeah, it was the very image I was trying to avoid, and that triggered an awareness after that I couldn't fully shake. But that third time, I was sitting on the right side of the chair. I was already doing the breathing from the get-go because I wasn't allowing that panic to happen again, and I made it. And I did all 4 toboggan rides, and we realized you don't have to get on the chair after the 4th one because you can just leave. Like, you start at the top of the hill for the toboggans, you end at the top of the hill. It's only the chair to get back up to the top of the hill for the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th ride. But once I'd done the 4th ride, you can just leave. So we did that, and I made it. I did. The toboggans were really fun, and in a weird way, the conquering a fear of heights helps. The actual panic bit is no good, but like now I have the memory of like the fun of the toboggans plus the triumph of overcoming the chairs. It's like a double win. So it just makes the fun of the toboggans all the more impactful. Yeah, the fact that it says skyline, like that's anything with the word sky in it, I'm probably not going to love, and yet because I overcome it, I love that. I'm gonna blur out my partner because privacy, but that's the picture of me going down the hill. Yeah. And then it turned out in the shopping center, I found another Shake Shack. Like there was a second one. Well, the first one was at the gardens. The second one was in the shopping center itself. And then Shake Shack just became our regular burger restaurant place. Like if for nothing else, I knew I enjoyed the burgers there. Easy meal. And I realized that I hadn't seen a bookstore the whole time I was in Singapore, and I really wanted to go to a bookstore in each country. Foreshadowing. But when I looked them up, it turned out I looked them up really late in the day, and there was supposedly one closing soon, so I rushed off to try and go to that one, but there were renovations outside, so I couldn't get to it, and then we made plans to go to a proper bookstore the next day, and I'm so glad I did. Because this bookstore was like I said before, they had such a good balance of Western and Eastern. Like, it literally had manga in Japanese and then manga in English. So you could buy both versions. And to the point where I don't feel like I actually got to explore the entire bookshop because we were short on time and we only had the single day and I needed to pee. Like, there were multiple factors, but there were so many sections. Like, if I remember correctly, there was a Japanese section, a Chinese section, a Singapore section. I think there was a Scottish section and an Irish section. I might be remembering the Scottish-Irish bookstore, but, like, it had so many options. Like, I found this just beautiful cover, and that, I think, was in the Singapore section. And then, like, yeah, they're expensive and they're big, so I told myself I was only getting one, and I got the Freezer Saga because, well, I mean, if you've seen the show, you know why. It was either that or the end of the Cell Saga, like one of those two moments. The thing is, we probably do have that at home in a bookstore, but it is harder for Australia to get manga, and it still would cost a lot of money. And the trouble is, when I'm at home, I'm like, well, I can't really justify that expense. But I'm on holidays, and the joy of it is buying a book from Singapore. So I probably can get the book from home, but it's the principle of the thing. And that logic got me into big trouble. Yeah, the other reason we couldn't spend all day in the bookstore was there was also a museum we were going to, and that was really interesting. That has stuck with me in a way I don't think I've fully processed yet. Essentially, from what I remember, because I struggled in school, I don't know much history, to be honest. It's a big gap I'm trying to fill. It's hard because my ADHD brain goes to, I really enjoy myth, but real life history is difficult for me. It just doesn't soak in the same way. But what did soak in was apparently the English took over Singapore, and the Singaporeans naturally didn't like it. But then the Japanese took over Singapore, and that was, I think by the reports, worse. But then when the English came and took the Japanese back out of Singapore, it wasn't like now put it back the way it was, so much as it was the English Empire taking a lesson from that and going, well, since the Japanese took the empire away from us, we've kind of understood that the empire wasn't all that great, so Singapore can have its land back. And even the tour was talking about how Singapore is still struggling to get its water supply in order. So Singapore is a good trade connection between England and Japan, and some of this may be like, don't take this as historical accuracy. This is my memory of what I read at the museum. But essentially the idea of Singapore got conquered by both sides. And the ultimate conclusion takeaway was Singapore is better off not having that happen to them, which seems a bit obvious in hindsight. And it's just unfortunate to see that at the end of the day, I think everyone lost. Because it's like, well, England lost their empire, Japan lost its empire, and Singapore lost its water source, and everyone suffered. At the end of the day, everyone lost something. So that was Singapore. And then I was on my way to the airport. The Uber guy was super nice. There was a moment where he said, we have good security and good laws. And I thought, yeah, the cleanliness law and I agree. He then said, it's good security. I mean, if you break a law, 6 to 8 policemen will just jump out of nowhere and get you. And I was like, that is definitely not the case here. You might see some policemen at train stations, but for the most part, you see people litter, you see people do all the things you can't do in Singapore, and there's no security to be found. Whereas hearing him say that really made it sound like you can't break a law without someone somewhere instantly finding you. And that may be terrifying depending on what the laws are, but I don't know, there is to an extent some safety in that. This all gets into political and historical stuff that I honestly don't know much about. So it's honestly just me being like, I'm going to comment on this and then be really nervous that I don't understand it and that it'll somehow backfire because I don't understand it. So, like, trying to cover my bases without even knowing what bases it is I'm supposed to cover. Politics and geography is interesting, and something I honestly haven't had to think about much, because I live in a country with one set of politics and no neighboring countries, except for those overseas. And we still hear more about American politics than we do about New Zealand politics. And then I was on the flight from Singapore to Frankfurt, and then Frankfurt to UK. It was a flight from Singapore to Frankfurt, and then like German airport for only however long we were there. So I didn't actually see any of Germany, it was just a stop off. And then Frankfurt to England. I don't remember much of that flight, to be honest. I feel like it was a short one. Or it was the one that was the longest. In which case, I couldn't sleep, and only when I had a blanket and pillow over me did I even feel like I was remotely in bed, but the plane kept jolting, so yeah, I really didn't sleep well at all. And I thought I would have written it down, so maybe it was later. There was this really cool waterfall. I feel like it had another name, but it was this big hole in the floor, and then towering waterfall dropping down, and it changed color and was beautiful. And then on the way back from that, I came across a Pokemon store. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, Pokemon, yeah, a store that sells Pokemon. They're everywhere. No, they are not. We have EB Games, JB Hi-Fi, like game stores, DVD stores that happen to sell Pokemon. We have board game and card game stores, but I have never, ever seen a store that is just Pokemon. Maybe they're in Australia. I've never found one, never seen one. Did not occur to me it existed. Up until I saw it, like I saw the Pokemon logo on the store and was like, no way, that's a store with just Pokemon stuff? Of course there's a Pokemon store. Of course there's a store with just Pokemon. There's a billion Pokemon merchandise around. Why wouldn't there be a Pokemon store? But I've never seen one. I've just seen like stores that sell games that happen to sell Pokemon stuff because Pokemon is a game. And it had